Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-affleck.
And it's time for
Happy birthday to UnSpun. Happy birthday to UnSpun. Happy birthday, it's 100. Happy birthday to UnSpun.
Yay! 100! 100, dude.
100. Woo!
We're a century.
We can't have cake. We don't have candles. We can't. I was looking for our little party hats. I can't find them.
Nothing.
I got the singing for you. Your little song for you there.
I loved it.
100. That's pretty impressive. I say, in the local podcast world, 100 straight every week. This show's been on. Not a week has been missed.
Nope.
We may want to talk about this Christmas now that we've made 100.
Yeah.
A couple weeks off.
We'll take a couple weeks.
Yeah, I know. So congratulations to you.
And to you. And I have to say, for a little behind the scenes of UnSpun, when we started this, George, you and I literally were doing one to just try it out.
Yeah.
Remember that? We just were like, it was you and
me,
issues
and audio
right?
issues.
Amanda and Patrick and McLean. And then we just did it.
Tim helped with some audio stuff in the beginning. And it was like, yeah.
But we did 30 minutes just to be like, let's just do a test. And like an hour later, it was up on the Orca.ca. And I was like, whoa, I thought that was just a test. But it was like, it was so good. We got to keep doing it. And we're still doing it exactly the same way. You and me, just being you and me, talking like we do.
Which if you love it, you love it. If you hate it, you hate it. What can we do?
If you hate it, you still watch it. Or you still listen. You love to hate us because, following you on Twitter is a gas, George_affleck. Yes. Oh, you're on there. I see you.
Yeah.
Holy cow. We'll get into some of the today Twitter stuff.
Getting a little pokey this week. Yeah.
A bit. So we're going to cover the gamut today in 30 minutes, as we do here on UnSpun podcast. UnSpun 100 is still going to be 30 minutes long to start the timer, at least. But we got a lot to cover, but we're going to start local. We'll start on the municipal front, as there is a lot of talk about the budget in the city of Vancouver. Boy, very feisty consultation going on.
Consultation, yeah. Well, we have 260 speakers signed up. This will, I think, it's still going on. 5% property tax increase, plus. So you're looking at a significant property and services cost tax increase. In a time of a pandemic, although the budget, is being slashed, but they're losing revenue. They don't have the money coming in from the way it used to come in. So parking and all those other things. So they have to find the cash somehow. And so instead of cutting, they are, as much as they could, they are using a tax increase when it's the worst time possible. And, it's frustrating because you go, have you done the work that's necessary? So 260 speakers.
The answer to that is no, right? We don't even know what's being spent where. Where is the due diligence on that? How can we possibly plan a budget for the city of Vancouver without knowing where the fat is?
Well, and the way, and I talked about this, but here's how I see budgeting and the way it should work in my mind. And I've tweeted this and try to keep it simple as possible. But there basically is, you have the basics, the road maintenance and the whatever, keeping the sidewalk clean, policing, things like that. Yeah. What are those things that you're required as a city to do? Okay, put that into a pile of money. Start from zero and say, this is how much to do the basics. What would you appreciate as a resident that you say, I expect this for my taxes. That's how much that's going to cost. Okay, and the money is coming from blank, and that's going to, oh my gosh, it's enough. We have some money left, or we don't have enough. We have some left. Okay, we got some money left. Or, let's say, now let's focus as a whole and look at everything that we do that's beyond what we are required to do, whether it be grants, whether it be whatever it might be, whether it be, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And I don't want to get into the politics of this because it is very, very political.
Yeah.
And so you look at all those other programs that the city pays for in its operating budget, and you say, okay, everybody, publicly, and as a council representing the people of Vancouver, what of these things do we want to do? Which ones do we want to prioritize? And can we get to a balanced budget and achieve all the goals that we want to achieve that we've discussed in this new budget? And this should be done every year. And you'll get a trend, obviously, after the 4-year term. You can see where the council's going on philosophy of and things like that as a government. But they don't do that. They get a blunk. Here's a staff budget that comes from staff. There's no behind the scenes. There's no Vision got rid of this. There used to be a process with all council. Used to be much more part of the process in sitting down and going through and reviewing and talking about it. There used to be much more outreach into the public. They used to take the public on a road show or the budget on a road show.
Yeah.
They stopped that at Vision because they said nobody's attending. And I said, who cares? It's even just a perception that we're reaching out to the public to say, come to this community center or wherever and talk about the things and look at what we're presenting and give us your opinion. They stopped that. All you do now is you have 1 or 2 meetings at City Hall. That's, or now they do it online for the COVID period. The process is so upside down and as a result, you get these 260 speakers who are all over the map. Mathematically, you can't figure out, okay, who are these people? Where did they come from? How do I, as a counselor, balance this people? How should I take this input and then make my decision as a counselor, or do I just ignore it because it's just noise? This public process is just noise.
Exhausting. It's exhausting.
Hours. Every speaker is 7 minutes on average. So you take 260 times 7. So that's how long it takes to get through those 260 speakers. So it's very frustrating, and I'm disappointed that this council as a whole didn't make these decisions in their first 3 months to say, let's not do that budget. We talked about that 2 years ago. We get 3 months to make a decision on this. I mean, look at the federal and provincial governments haven't done budgets in almost 2 years federally.
Right. Because we're in a pandemic.
Yeah. And so you can hold off on this stuff.
Yeah.
And they should have done that in the first term, in the first 6 months of their reign of horror, to deal with the process of budgeting. And I think you wouldn't have 260 people signed up now because they'd be going, okay, well, we know the process now and we're confident or whatever. They would have found a way to create more engagement. But now you have just people who are angry, you have special interest groups, it's very, very challenging. And you end up with a budget that's a piece of garbage that's not what anybody wants. And you have leaders within the business community tweeting nasty stuff, which I've never seen before, against the city. It's quite surprising.
And that has amped up and ramped up on a couple of fronts. Let's unpack that a bit. So budget is our header. Within that is, the back and forth between the City of Vancouver and the Vancouver Police Department. Like the numbers that are being thrown back and forth, not a lot of middle ground being found between the two sides. And it really feels like a disconnect, which adds another level from a taxpayer, from a citizen perspective, like not knowing the politics behind it all. It feels like my city leaders and my police department should not be at odds with one another in a pandemic, in an opioid crisis, in what is more and more becoming an escalating crime scenario in our city. It feels, I'm tense about it, George.
Yeah, there is. It's interesting, and from a spin point of view, the police are on a major, communications strategy to justify their request for a 2 to 3% increase in their budget.
Right.
When everybody else is being asked to cut. Every other department has to find ways to cut, at least get to zero, but if not zero, minus budget increase. So, but the police are saying, nope, can't do it. We need 2% at least.
Just to keep the lights on. That scares me. Like, stop talking like the lights are going dark at headquarters.
Sounds like the mayor and his.
No, right? Exactly.
And so it's. I understand, and we're having some issues. I mean, it depends on how you read the data. There's all these arguments back and forth about data, but because we've been in a pandemic and we've been in lockdown, there's a lot of crime that's down because nobody's out there. But there's a lot of other crime that is up, and especially more violent crime is up, and more street crime and those kind of things are happening.
People are breaking into people's homes because they're desperate.
Yeah. So, but the police are but the question then comes down to, okay, so the police chosen from a spin point of view to really use Twitter. They're aggressively on Twitter. I've never seen them aggressively posting criminal activity on Twitter with pictures of guns and so they said, we need to justify this publicly and show people why we need this money. And this, the whole anti-police movement, of course, is happening worldwide, and defund the police and that argument, which I think is not necessarily that's not the argument right now in Vancouver. I think people are just saying, okay, we need the police, and I think there's a feeling that we're feeling a bit vulnerable right now. And so I don't get a sense it's defund the police. It's just like, okay, guys, we're all challenged this over this next year or 2 years. I think the best spin for the police would say, okay, zero. We're going to do zero this year. We're going to find a way.
Just for a year.
Just for a
Just
year.
for now. We're going to find a way to
Gotta
survive with
do
you
it.
guys.
We're going to work harder and we're going to do what we can and all that stuff. And I know that's going to be challenged for them, like it's challenging for every department right now, or
Right.
any business. And already
But
residents.
consequently have the city of Vancouver say, you know what? Done. Let's stop wasting time on less, and we'll agree to zero right now, and we'll revisit this in 6 months' time, so that in a year from now, we'll have the number that is actually going to move us forward. Like it feels to me, George, that we are ever more divisive in this city, in particularly this city where, people are like, geographically, Vancouver is blah, 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 fill in the blank. Hi, that's not happening in the city that's just on the other side of that street, and just on the other side of that river, and just on the other side of
the other side of this. Yeah, it's
it makes me crazy.
we used to be proud of our community break, how our city was built of 22 to 26, neighborhoods. Now it's become neighborhood versus neighborhood, which is an argument against the ward system, by the way, because that's kind of what happens with wards, is you pit neighborhoods against neighborhoods and politically, and I think that's not fair. But
I agree.
we have a bigger challenge downtown right now because nobody's down there. So therefore, crime is up.
Exactly. So crime is up, right? It is. Downtown East Side, Strathcona, of course, obviously. We could spend an entire 30 minutes talking about how nothing's changed there, and we'll get to the park board in a minute. If you tune in for that, don't worry, it's coming. But on the other side of that, like we've got Yaletown where you live. You've talked about it week after week after week. I'm seeing it in my neck of the woods, and where my parents live, and where my cousin is. Like, community to community, everybody's starting to talk about escalating mental health struggles, opioid issues, and crime. So all of these things fall under policing in one form or another. So that this ball of wax is not going to be resolved in a day or in even a year, but we got to methodically start speaking to what's happening.
We need to get through this pandemic. I mean, the opioid crisis is terrible as well, but right now we are all vulnerable with this pandemic, all of us. And I think we as a people need to say, okay, and government needs to take that lead as well, saying we have to be fiscally, careful with our money, how we spend it. But when we spend it, we've got to make sure we're spending it in the exact right places. And the police, of course, will argue that that's where we should be spending the money. But then you might argue, but what about healthcare? What about all this other stuff? There's all it's tough. But we have no money. The cities have to balance their budgets. They're given a pass for this year, but they have to pass their budgets, and we're in a major recession that's not going to end overnight. Unfortunately, this government in Vancouver didn't prepare itself the way I wanted it to prepare itself for the worst of times.
Yeah, you were calling for that in the early days of this. We're 100 episodes into UnSpun, and I vividly remember you going, there needs to be a budget. And I'm like, really? Now? And you're like, yeah, we need you. I'm like, but it's so weird right now. And you're like, no, we need it, because we're going to be in point C, D, and E before you even know it, and we will have done damage that's irreparable if we don't get on it. And you definitely, I have to give you credit where credit is due. Fiscal responsibility has been something that you've been asking for on the city level, certainly, and then provincially on top of that, and federally as well. But the city of Vancouver, budget-wise, because of the balloon. I mean, when you laid out to me for the first time just how much the city's budget has grown over recent years, it is astounding.
Yeah. It's three times the population growth, basically prorated to the population growth. So where the budget's 30%, it's just growing out of control based on the population. So and there's an op-ed that I wrote for Vancouver Sun a couple of years ago, in 2016, and it's reposted on my Twitter, and it sort of lays it out about how we spend our money, and how is a proportion of the growth of the residents. And staff will always argue, and they did this, is that, well, yes, but every resident costs more each time they come. I'm like, well, that makes no sense to me. But there is.
How is that? I've lived here a long time, and I'm not more expensive, man.
Infrastructure, as you add population, things become more expensive to develop, to build. You need better sewer, water, all that kind of stuff. But Vancouver grows by 5,000 to 7,000 people every. It's basically that same percentage of the overall population every year since the beginning of Vancouver, almost. I mean, it's never. So we can predict that number every year. So therefore, we should be able to predict out a 10, 20-year budget, roughly. The biggest challenge is staff costs and union relationships and negotiation, which you never know. But generally, if you stay at the rate of inflation with staffing costs, then you should be able to predict that as you move forward. And none of that ever happens. And looking at the charts that they put in the budget, all you have to go to page like 4, and it shows you the ratio of debt per person that they're projecting now. It had flattened, which was still too high. It's about $900 per person debt ratio. So every person in the city, we owe $900 basically but they're projecting it in the next 5 years to about $1,300. It used to be about $400-$500.
Wow.
About 10 years ago. When happened about 10 years ago? So the ratio.
What happened about 10 years ago?
The debt per person's doubled and potentially will triple from what it was in 2005. So that says to me, we're borrowing too much money. We're giving away too much money. We're not taking care of our cash in Vancouver. And Vancouver has a lot of flexibility, unlike other cities, to do this because we have our own charter. We have such big development. So other cities don't have to face this. Burnaby saved a whole bunch of money. Other cities have been very careful. They have more restrictions than we do in Vancouver. And as a result, we borrowed, I think, beyond what we should have. And as a result, here we are. And that represents 10%.
But here we are. I know. I'm staring down the increase in taxes, and I'm really concerned about my ability to continue to live here. I honestly am reaching the point where it's, and I'm not alone. And I'm actually one of the very fortunate people who is able to own a property in the city, in the neighborhood that my family first owned property in. My very blue collar, lower, scraping up to middle class family lived 5 houses down. And now this is a multi-million-dollar neighborhood, and I live on a postage stamp. So, I do feel my entitlement is on the table when it comes to the fact that my problems versus the problems of others are very small, and yet at the same time, I'm maxed. I can't take on more that this government just wants to go, you know what? We're just going to charge you extra because my salaries are not going up exponentially. So this is the thing. And then when they want to talk about tolling me or making it so that I have to pay hundreds of dollars a year for the parking spot that I already paid for in my parking in front of my house. Now I'm going to have to pay $400 a year for that? Are you kidding me? No, hell no. I will sell my car. So you're going to lose more revenue for me. I'm going to clean out my garage. I'll put one car in the garage and I'll make sure it's this big and electric. Is that what they're looking to do to people who live here? I don't know. It feels like it. They certainly don't want me going downtown to go out for dinner when this pandemic is over, because I'm not crossing the streets that are going to cost me money to go pay an extra to go then park down there to pay extra for food down there that costs extra because they have to cover the cost of delivering it to the place that costs extra.
There's this term they use at City Hall called user pay, and I've talked about this before. And there was this move, and I don't disagree with it. It's like, okay, let's, instead of charging more taxes, let's user pay. So the road tolls, all that kind of fits into that category. User pay, find a way to charge for the usage. Okay, good, sounds great. But you should then reward everybody else on a lowering property taxes. There should be a balance.
Scale there.
Neutral. So that way you go, okay, I don't mind if I'm going to use more water or I'm going to park my car in the street, but I'm paying 10% less tax than I would have, 10 years ago. Then
I want to not pay for it in one place and also another.
Yeah, but they're double dipping. They're double dipping.
Yeah. Oh, well, remember when it used to cost just cents to park on the street? If you were lucky enough to get a meter, it was like plug a couple quarters in there, you're good. I went down to Yaletown. I was like, what do you mean it's $3 for 15 minutes or whatever the hell it was? I was like, what? And
that, the pay as you go, the parking, the phone
app,
it's amazing because of course you'll park for 15 minutes, but you might use 10. Somebody comes and parks there afterwards. You used to be able to, because you used to put the money in the thing and I got 5 minutes. All right. Now you get double the time on the meter. So the city is making more money per meter than they used to because of technology. But they're charging more too. So, but again, I don't mind user pay, but you have to reward me, all of us, on the other side then, and show us. And again, it goes back to budgeting. How much are we spending? And the budget's gone from 600 million to 1.456 billion. I mean, it's it's crazy in the last.
Am I crazy though, George? And I probably am. But am I crazy to ask if it's fair that what they're proposing, I think it's like Clark Drive to 12th Avenue to Burrard Street to, the downtown core. That it's only that is this sort of, what is it, a toll wall to get into? Is that what they're calling it now?
Yeah, toll like that came up with something today on the Metro board meeting or transit board meeting. I think it was a talk about toll wall. I saw it on Twitter today. I think it was our friend Transit Joe.
Oh, Transit Joe Geek.
Yes,
hey Joe,
follower of ours. So yeah, this transit wall. I think the regions they're getting worried that Vancouver's pushing hard on this, because if you and for Vancouver, a regional toll system can be quite effective. We don't drive as much in the city as they do outside the city. They drive into the city, they drive everywhere. We have a city that was built for many, many years. You're trying to find this mix of usages of vehicles, whether it be trains or walking or biking or whatever.
Yeah.
And so a city toll, though, would be terrible for business, as we know from the CEO of the Bridget
Vancouver Board of Trade.
Board of Trade, Greater Vancouver Board of Trade now, I think it's called.
Yeah.
The
Bridget Anderson, love her.
Bridget Anderson. So but the reason they're doing this, they want to push Metro to come up with a tolling system for the region. And of course, these mayors outside the city are like, no way. That is political suicide. And it is. It is.
And that's why it's political suicide to try and do it in the city of Vancouver as well. So Kennedy-Stewart is already running for the next election, and we're mid-pandemic. And like the fundraiser that he had the other day,
God. So crass, so tacky.
What? Like whoever's idea that was, they need to be fired.
He's doing a fundraiser, and you're thinking, oh, that's nice. Like for what charity? Oh, himself. For 22.
Not the food bank, right?
Dude,
not the
pandemic,
people that are living on the streets without shelter, without a blanket, without warm, dry socks, with no food. Like
we're in a pandemic. We're all suffering. Buddy, 2022 is a million years away. Get off that for now. Do your job. Stop being so tacky. It's like
I feel like he's punking us, George. I feel like he's punking us. I really do. I'm not feeling great about what I'm hearing from my park board sources.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, John.
Here we go. I'm going to tell the truth here because we are unspun. I texted you and I said, oh my God, did you see fill in the blank? And you're like, no, I blocked that.
Yeah, well, I don't block anything, but there's some I block it out of my brain sometimes, the stuff they're doing in the park.
That's what I meant. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean like physically block. You're like, no, I blocked that out.
It's madness. So they've done two things, right? One was once a golf motion related to a golf, that came out of nowhere, which was totally inappropriate and unfair and not democratic. That I think Dave Demers, Commissioner Dave Demers, threw on the floor, and of course must have probably got the majority of his fellow commissioners on board.
Right, because they had it planned in the back room already.
Backroom deals.
Here we go. This sounds so familiar. Like how? But George, okay, so I don't golf. I watch golf. I like golf. I've covered golf. I have most of the people in my family have enough money that they can belong to a golf club or go to a private club and golf. It costs a lot of money. Public courses don't. Right now in a pandemic, one of the safest activities for people who can't do strenuous physical activity, golf.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you, Dave Demers and those on that Green Cope Alliance, honestly, mid-pandemic, put this on the table as a priority to close.
How is it a priority? How is that a priority? Come on, you've got people sleeping in tents in your parks right now. You've got crime in and around your parks. You've got dirty parks. You've got, priorities. I can think of a lot.
Women getting attacked in your parks. Women getting attacked in parks.
Yeah.
And we're talking about golf? Are you kidding me? I just
prioritizing.
And then, it goes to the next level because it's like, oh, wait, within all of that, because they want sparkly things, they slide down. You were talking about budgets earlier. The Audubon Society, Green Space and Birds, pay for the upkeep of the public courses. So whatever they're talking about, sparkly things, revenue, we're going to rework, whatever, that's garbage. That is just utter garbage. The Audubon Society gives big dollars to care for our public golf courses in Vancouver, period. That is on the authority of people who are veteran park board people. Hello, you bunch of newbies. Anyway, and then they want to change the charter, George. They want to actually change the charter because they have the majority. They want to give themselves extra power by removing public consultation.
Sounds familiar.
I hate this so much. I feel like we're being trumped.
Whoa.
I do.
Council went through this with Vision about 10 years ago. In 2014, after 2014, they changed the speaking lengths and even the times that we met without any consultation at all. And
oh my God.
People were like, what? And they did it again, actually. This council decided to even shorten even further those speaking times. So public consultation and public engagement and listening to people is not something that seems Vancouver politicians seem to like in park board and previously and certainly currently potentially in council. And now we're seeing it. I think
only when they're running for office.
Yeah, they all talk about consultation when they're running.
You know what? Go back to the bios for the Green Cope Alliance and the park board. Read their bios. It's all ironic. We're all about engagement and public consultation. And I bought it. I voted for these people. I think that's why I'm most angry. I am voting them out. I am taking names and I'm going to tell everybody I know in 2022 who to not vote for.
Episode 100, we're on fire.
I know, I'm mad. You know what? I'm not always mad though, because I'm actually feeling like there might be some hope on the horizon with the vaccine rollout. We're seeing your in-laws are getting their vaccines.
I know. I tweeted this on Sunday because Amanda talks to her dad and her stepmom every Sunday on Zoom, and they told us that they have been told that the vaccine for them would be available in about 10 days. That was Sunday.
Awesome.
So I tweeted this out. So I'm like, what? I was excited because, of course, Amanda, just like you, her parents, they're in their 70s. She wants to see them. She can't go to England. And so Tuesday, they publicly announced this, I guess, internationally, that they'd approved it and vaccinations would start in a week. And so they're starting, it's amazing. So it's like they're starting with the first responders and then they're going to 80-year-olds and plus and then 70s. So I think they've had their scheduled appointment already set up for to get their vaccine and for Amanda's parents. So it's before Christmas. So it's happening. And here in Canada, that's my.
Didn't you hear that we're supposed to be like the announcement's coming in 2 weeks in terms of the exact date, but it's supposed to be the first 2 weeks of January for long-term care homes and care home workers and emergency and first responders, frontline healthcare workers?
I have not heard anything official. And Chrystia Freeland was the Minister of Finance, was on Global this morning, and she was asked that question point blank and danced around it to the Nitu's, the hosts, to her frustration. So I haven't heard the federal government be very clear. Maybe they were while we're sitting here, but to me, it's like, we talked about this last week, we sort of cutting them some slack, but at some point you have to go, okay, this is starting to really build up and people are starting to get really frustrated when they see other countries really like having to lay out a specific, like literally in a week in England. I mean, how was that possible? I know we're a smaller country and we can't produce a vaccine here, but you must have a rough idea. January, February, March, can you give me, and if you don't have a specific date, then just simply say that. We're sorry.
Yeah, I want to be kept up to date. I don't want a pie in the sky date. I don't want like, we're going to have this by January 6th. Just like we gave them a number. I want it to be, okay, it looks like it's probably going to be in the first or second week of January. And the timeline for all Canadians to be vaccinated is by June 15th. We're going to hopefully beat that target. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to be a part of the strategy timeline as opposed to dates that are ever moving that sound like political promises. And I'm still waiting for that $1,000 check from the NDP government that's going to, help my significant other who's been out of work since March.
Dream on. Because all of that, because I think if they're clear, they can at least, one of the frustrations we have is we're kind of in lockdown. You're more locked down than I am.
But, very locked down.
We're seeing the deaths, add up every day. We're seeing that this isn't flattening. So at least say, okay, it's only a few more months where I have to be in this nightmare, or 1 month or 6 months. I need to know. I mean, I think people are getting frustrated, and then it's difficult to control them when they feel like there's no end in sight. That's how people feel right now. Like in Canada, we have no end in sight. We don't know. Is it a year? I heard somebody saying by next December, potentially. I'm like, next December? Like, don't say that to me. That makes me mad.
I heard July. When I listened to
Yeah,
Dr.
every month is
Henry,
available. Every July, June, February, March, September. Okay, got it.
I think we're still going to have masks and physical distancing be a part of our lives probably for another year. I do believe that we will be less terrified for our daily interactions and for our elders by midsummer. Yeah. I told you that I have the opportunity to go and be a part of the Olympics in Tokyo. And I've been told that that will be happening in July. Would they plan this event without? I don't think that they will.
Actually, I haven't heard anything about Japan and their plan for their release of. I haven't heard anything about Japan's vaccination program. It'd be interesting to see.
I haven't either, but I am guaranteeing you I'm not going to Japan for the Olympics without being vaccinated and going into a place that is highly vaccinated. So let's leave it there because we can update this next week, and we're running out of time, and I have to get to my column because you liked it. It's
related. Well, it's what did you call it? You have a name for it.
I identified there's like the COVIDiot and the COVID cop, and in the middle there's the loopholer.
The loopholer, and I think that we're all quite often a little bit guilty of loopholing, or just kind of, oh, I'm just going to meet these two. I'm walking down the street and but you realize if you're thinking, oh my God, I'm breaking the rules here. I had a couple of friends. They were like, I live in a townhouse sort of thing. We're all open and all our sidewalks connect and so you're walking and then you see everybody, you start chatting and you go, oh my God, this is actually not permitted. This is not permitted. We got to
not allowed. Yeah.
Household
only. Because people in my column, you'll read it because what sparked it is that people are like, I don't understand. They weren't clear enough about it on the briefing. And I'm like, I'm watching the briefings. It's pretty clear to me. Go home, stay home, go to work or school, wash your hands, wear a mask if you're in a public space, exercise still, but do it alone. Stick with just the people in your household. If you live alone, you can pick one or two other people who agree to only see you as though you're in the same household. And that's it.
And you can go to a restaurant, but only with one other person, and basically,
or go to a restaurant with your family in your household, or that one other person if you're that solo person. Like it's really simpler than you think. People who are looking for answers are also looking for loopholes, which is why I call them a loopholer, which is why you should read the column at theorca.ca.
Happy 100th!
Happy century!
Baby! Woo!
One day we'll do this with vodka. Say goodbye, George.
See you later.